I hope that you two will introduce Tufts Mutual Aid and introduce yourselves. And somehow my computer is not plugged in. Like it's plugged into and my battery's going to die. So I'm going to duck out for just 1 second in this COVID home studio here. But why don't you go ahead and introduce Tufts Mutual Aid and yourselves? I have you live now. But I think you're muted. Great, Nikhil, great.
Yeah, sure. So Madeline and I are part of the many organizers and members of Tufts Mutual Aid. So we're essentially a collective of people who are coming together, kind of banded together really quickly after Tufts announced, just like many other universities, its shutdown and cessation of live classes and other activities and a transition to virtual learning. And that meant that people had to move off campus essentially across the country, across the world for within 5 days. So Mutual Aid specifically has been focused on making sure that the students who are most in need of resources get the resources that they need. So essentially, we're a facilitator. Yeah. Would you like to add anything to that, Madeline?
Yeah, I mean, I think you covered it really well. I think that's about that. That about covers it, the basics.
So can you tell us some of the stories that you've heard as you've been working with the folks that you're working with? Like, what do you hear from people? Like, what's happening in their lives, right, as a result of these changes?
So I think there's just such a huge variety in the circumstances that students are in, and I'll just probably start chronologically from the need to really find the resources to move off campus. Essentially, that was the first challenge, I think. A lot of monetary resources for travel, finding a place to stay, so housing, and also finding food and other resources that you need for literally just packing and all these things that just come up unexpectedly, because this is by definition a very unexpected situation. So after that, we've obviously, as an educational institution, had to deal with, as students and also as professors and instructors and just members of the Tufts community, had to deal with this new virtual mode of learning. And of course, the experiences that we had in person didn't directly translate to a virtual environment. So many people are in either in homes that do not really support their academic success. So that could be because, for a range of reasons, we've heard people with unwell parents or other relatives and people that they're living with in very small, cramped spaces, or in not emotionally just unsustainable and unhealthy environments as well at home, and having added responsibilities. So there are a lot of academic and policy and systemic changes that had to come about, not only in terms of tangible resources, but also in terms of the wide variety of situations that students found themselves in, and really making sure that their voices were heard by the administration and allowing them a platform to voice those changes, voice their concerns and their needs, and really get those needs met, and change the expectations that we have as well.
Yeah, we have a question from Joel Greenberg. He says, how much notice were people given to move off campus? Seems like a huge burden for students and families.
Yeah, it was about I think it was 5 days, just about. I think we got or maybe 6. We got the note, an email notification on March 10th. That we would have to leave campus, and everyone had to be gone by the following Monday. And so it was the 5-6 days in between there were just a madhouse. Like you could just feel like the panic and the grief in the air. And both of us are seniors, and so there's just the added layer of this. This time is supposed to be like our last. Like the last couple months, like getting to have some closure, and so having to rush all of that was definitely difficult. And there about the like a lot of Tufts students live off campus. Anyways, like most juniors and seniors live in off-campus houses, and so there are a lot of folks who've stuck around. But obviously, it's very different since we can't be seeing each other anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. And would you say, I mean, obviously you don't know numbers, but maybe you do. Like what percentage of Tufts students actually had to leave town, like had to find, like were on campus and had to find somewhere else and ended up maybe going home?
I don't know. Do you know any numbers off the top of your head?
I
don't know.
I feel like it has to be above half the student body, definitely. It has to be at least 60 to 70% of students, because the students who live off campus are either juniors or seniors, because you have to stay on campus for the first 2 years. So that's already half the population of Tufts. And then there's obviously seniors like me who did live on campus, or juniors, whatever year you are, even graduate students who had to just leave. So honestly, it's definitely in the thousands. If you include graduate students as well, it's definitely in like about 4 or 5, easily 5,000 or more. So yeah, there's just a massive like move out of students, and that's a Tufts as a medium-sized school. There are obviously state schools across the country, and other places that essentially are moving literally millions of students across the country and the world. So lots.
Yeah, and so it's interesting because when I first heard of Tufts Mutual Aid, I thought, okay, it's like, the other mutual aid societies helping provide, helping people make sure they're safe that they can pay their rent, that they can get groceries and things. But it sounds like you are also pretty deeply involved in making sure that students who have to now continue their education are able to do that part of it. So, like, how do you balance those, or what do you feel has been happening for students who have to continue their education, have to do everything online? Like, how disruptive has that been to their education? Maybe talk about that side, just the educational aspect of it.
Yeah, so I will probably speak a little bit about this just because I've had the privilege to be involved with a group of students. But like we honestly are working collectively together on pretty much everything in mutual aid, which is one of the most beautiful things about it. I honestly have not seen a more like restorative and like inspiring movement happen in a long while, if not since I've come to Tufts. But honestly, like it's really great to see people kind of pouring their energies into what they're passionate about. So a bunch of us kind of worked on these systemic changes that we wanted the administration to make, and liaised with the Senate, where that already has existing relationships with the admin. So we actually like made a course guidelines proposal that initially wasn't pulled from the student body. It wasn't exactly, voicing every single concern that the students had, but it was taken from the surveys that we sent out with the general concerns. And then also later what we did is send out another survey asking what people needed. So in the beginning, there were a bunch of surveys. So that's how we kind of gathered information. And within this like course changes or guidelines proposal to the essentially the like higher ups, like the deans of engineering, the School of Engineering, Arts and Sciences, we identified like some core issues. So we requested that attendance requirements and synchronous learning were not required. So that means you should be able to access and view all course material, including discussions, and provided some suggestions of how to conduct discussions asynchronously with multimodal engagement. And that's something that I think should be a feature of education in general. I mean, like, I can talk forever about pedagogy, so this is very much my area of interest, and I feel I have a lot of strong feelings about it. But in this situation, I think it was most important to make sure that students could do what they needed to do and take care of themselves and their lives and their home lives, which has so much variety, without conforming to rigid standards set by the existing academic system that we have in higher education here in America. So, which itself is comparatively sometimes, depending on like what other educational systems you're comparing to, could be a lot more relaxed and liberal, but that's only when I think people in power allow students, allow faculty, allow everyone else to feel comfortable to make their own decisions and choices and feel like they actually have an option. So that was one big thing we advocated for, making things available online, the option of alternative assessments, and really sending out a statement to urge all faculty, which got sent out to all faculty, to urge them to switch away from traditional exams, because the level playing field, which in my opinion does not even exist, because there's so many systemic barriers and so many uneven turfs that we navigate just in our like multiplicity identities every single moment. So that supposed level playing field would not exist if you are taking an exam from varied environments and not like all in the same room. At least that was an argument we could easily make. So we kind of targeted what we collectively knew that the administration would respond to, combined with what we felt the student body would most need. So essentially, yeah, that kind of summarizes, and also like having exam policies that allow students to take exams unproctored. And in terms of like the efficacy of it, a lot of this did not actually amount to, because as we know, policy change takes quite a long time, and especially when the administration and others are dealing with so many unexpected factors of this pandemic, they weren't really making the systemic or like policy level changes. I don't think they might have been, I'm not sure whether they would have been able to, but it's something that we definitely are urging for the future so that students have a more equitable educational experience. But essentially just making sure that the word gets out so that then faculty who do have a lot of breadth of choice in terms of like what they require for their courses, make a decision that works for them and for the students, because they're also facing additional responsibilities a lot of the time.
Yeah. So just a last question about the other side. So the making sure people can get groceries, they can pay for their rent, all of these things. Have you seen, for the students that remain, are you interfacing at all with mamas, with another different mutual aid? Like, how is this mostly students helping students? How are you able to help those students who are in the area to be able to sort of afford the changing circumstances that are happening to them now, but specifically like rent, food, the basics?
Yeah, so we have an on-campus food pantry that that got started in the wake of campus closing, and we were able to secure like an on-campus space in our campus center, and with all the students moving out, we were able to collect like an enormous amount of food from students leaving and convert that to like food to supply a pantry, and then have been restocking it with support from the Tufts Dining Services and like very generous donations from the Graduate Student Council and a couple other sources. And the pantry's been getting like an enormous amount of use. Like it's open Monday through Friday, and like every time that I go, either a couple students will pass through or like, and every time I go, like we will have needed to restock it already. And so we aren't collecting any kind of hard data on like how much food is flowing through it or how many students are using it, just for privacy reasons and just like the capacity or lack thereof of being able to keep track of those kind of numbers. But just like anecdotally, it's been getting a lot of use, and it's super heartening to know that we're able to like help like fill a gap in people like having access to food, and whether that's like just because like they're nervous to go to a grocery store or can't afford it, like just being able to support the Tufts community in that way has been super heartening to be a part of that. And we're hoping that the pantry will be able to stay open at least until the end of the school year, if not for the summer as well. And hopefully lays the groundwork for something more long term. But it's been like a helpful like stopgap measure in the meantime. It's been getting a lot of use.
Yeah. What do you see as the long term?
It's hard to know at this point, because there's still so much uncertainty as to whether students will even get to return to campus in the fall. I feel like every day I'm reading some kind of article that talks about one side or the other, and so I think if it's impossible to know at this point. Like what the fall will look like, and it's tricky because like both of us are seniors, and so it won't affect us directly. But I know I have a lot of friends who are juniors, and just the uncertainty of knowing if they'll get to come back for their senior year is heartbreaking and really scary.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, what can people do? It does sound like it really has been the Tufts Mutual Aid is the students helping the students who have moved, leaving food, and the graduate students, helping in the, so are there ways that other people in the community can be helpful, and what would that be?
Yeah, so several ways, I think. So first of all, I think when Madeline talked about the food pantry earlier, that has been one of our core, very grounding efforts that, she and so many other people have put such an amazing amount of effort into, and there's really paid dividends, that has been really useful even for me personally. I can definitely speak to that. So that is something we'd love to love to see continue. I think, Madeline, you could probably say more about how we might want to continue that or solicit donations for the pantry if possible from especially to rescue food. I think, Madeline's one of the coordinators for food rescue at Tufts. So that's something that we'd love to continue, right?
Yeah. Yes, definitely. I think we're, like I said, it just always seems like we're running out of food in the pantry. And we're connected with some local nonprofits that have been really supportive in helping us access food. But any other resources, or just whether that's actual food or just advice on how to run a food pantry, things like that are super helpful for us, since we're just students, and there are staff members that have been really helpful in getting it started. It's an incredibly collaborative process.
And how can people reach you? Is there a website? Is there a email address people can reach out to, phone number, anything?
Yeah, I think we have a Facebook page for Tufts Mutual Aid that is checked on by several volunteers daily, and it's Tufts Mutual Aid Facebook. I don't know if there's anything else.
So there is the Facebook page is actually the main point of contact, TUFTS Mutual Aid, and essentially. For people who are not on Facebook, we do have a website that is also linked in the I believe even without an account, you would be able to access the website. But our main point of contact is really the Facebook page, and you can ask for and offer help by messaging us or just taking a look at all the posts that we have about the pantry, about other efforts, especially like if you are a student, to share your experiences. It doesn't matter where you are coming from or if you go here. Like one dream of ours is to really expand this, keep this going, not only for Tufts, but also outside of Tufts. So we definitely want it to be a continued effort, certainly within our institutional community, but also outside of it. So now that I think the semester is over, we really want to kind of branch out into better interfacing with mamas. That's something I personally have definitely wanted to do, and like talking to other nonprofits, seeing how we can help, because also there was a bunch of us who like really whose summer plans have been either changed or derailed or
Ruined.
unexpected. So yeah, most students would not be able to go to their in-person internships if they have any, or jobs or whatever they plan to do. So students who are in the area and are willing and able virtually, we would love to help out to fulfill your mission, and also like make sure that we can make this a sustainable effort and always open to new ideas. So I think that will definitely pick up in the next week or so. So that would be a great time to reach out and just kind of liaise with us and kind of just like figure out how we can not only get through this situation, but like life in general a lot more equitably than before.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks both of you for coming on. It's really great to hear about this part of our community that we probably don't hear a lot about outside of the Tufts community. So really great work you're doing. Thank you for doing it, and thanks for being on.